the world believes the Starlight Corporation is a beacon of innovation. Their promises of a brighter future have captivated the masses, but beneath the surface, they are the architects of something far more sinister. In the shadows, they conduct experiments on what they call anomalies, phenomena beyond human comprehension, entities that defy the natural laws of the universe. Many unwitting volunteers in their evil experiments have vanished without a trace, while others emerge, different, altered, and twisted into something unrecognizable. A faction that calls themselves Red Tango has dedicated themselves to exposing this truth to the world. Operating in the shadows, they're waging a silent war against the corporation. Mark Edwards and Macy Williams never intended to uncover the truth. A pair of curious minds, their only crime was stumbling upon a set of classified documents that should have never existed in the public eye. The moment they laid eyes on those records, Mark and Macy became targets. Will the truth finally be revealed, or will it be buried once more beneath the ruins of another Project Battlefield?
When I was a little kid, my parents would always tell stories about my great-great-grandpa. Each little segment would be told to me during my bedtime, and sometimes I wouldn't be able to sleep because I was too indulged in conjuring random theories. It got to a point where I automatically assumed he was still alive, but I kinda dropped that because of how silly and stupid it sounded. I forgot to mention who I was, by the way, even though I'm writing this in my super secretive notebook. I just overall like thinking that someone is somehow reading this. My name is Mark Edwards, and I am a vendor for my dad's company, Joseph's Sweet Treats, or JST for short. Even though we sell ice cream now, my dad told me about some mysterious scrolls he found while waddling around the basement. Totally not cryptic at all. There was absolutely no text within the scrolls to give the viewer any context whatsoever, but there were a few scribbled images. It shows a figure handling squared-shaped objects to seemingly even smaller figures, and what I'm processing is that this is supposed to be my great-great-grandpa selling his first prototypes of treats. What I all described was a few weeks ago. Now I cut to the past, where me and my dad are working a shift in a local park. Dad, are you seriously paying me $14.25 an hour to stand around all day in the scorching sun, just for no customers to appear? I said, exhaustingly. My dad laid back against a nearby tree in the shade and threw his cigarette onto the concrete street.
Well, kiddo, that's what the visor is for.
Unfortunately, the part that's supposed to be covering my eyes is actually intensifying the sunlight and makes the heat 10 times worse. I stared at the last portions of vanilla ice cream, contemplating if I should snag a cone for myself. Surely he wouldn't mind if I took a single one, right? I decided to quickly take some of the batch to cool myself down. I slowly reached for the scooper, and before I could reach the creamy sweet goodness of the ice cream, my dad coughed extremely loudly behind me.
Kid, if you're gonna take the supply for yourself, at least make it discreet.
I sighed disappointedly. Come on, Dad. We've been out here the majority of the shift, and not a single person has shown up since the afternoon. Before I could take a seat, my dad calmly lit up another cigarette and gestured to a person who was approaching me. I caught myself and instantly stood up and fixed my hair, even though it was already messed up to begin with. In the distance, I could see the slim figure of a girl I knew years ago. Her bright blonde hair remained the same, constantly flowing in the wind. Her charm made every boy in our grade fall for her, yet she cherry-picked me from the pile of guys I assumed she liked. When she stood in front of me, I was like a deer in headlights. The intricate patterns of her sundress and design of her straw hat had me mesmerized. My dad nudged me on the shoulder and pushed me out of my trance. Sorry about that. Anything I can get you, ma'am? I bowed down slightly to show my respect, and it made me cringe a little bit. She seemed to be entertained by it and giggled at the joke.
I wouldn't mind taking Neapolitan if y'all are still stocked on that.
I picked up the scoop and excitedly gave her the requested flavor, and to kill the inevitable silence, I started a conversation. So, Macy, how are your parents? Macy shrugged, then grabbed the cone from my hand.
They've been okay, to say the least. But my mom's taken a liking to you the last time you visited my house a few months ago.
I raised my eyebrow in surprise. Really? I never knew she had a thing for me. She lobbed a punch at me jokingly.
That's not what I meant, dummy.
Right. Is this me walking into your subtle trap so I'll be forced to go to your house? I could see her face unable to hold the sudden burst of laughter.
Maybe.
I sighed in disbelief, then turned to my dad, who smirked then gave me a small nod. I accepted my fate and allowed Macy to take me by hand to her house.
This is gonna be so exciting. We can watch horror documentaries, then investigate the most recent disappearances together.
She's always had a knack for things like these. During the cold, rainy nights of our middle school days, Macy would somehow manage to crack cases left and right like a professional investigator would. My peanut brain would usually just sit and watch her passionately write subtle clues down in her notebook, and scout out locations that the murderer was suspected to be. Most searches ended either because they were out of jurisdiction or already caught by the police. The only successful arrest was when my neighbor was caught disposing an oddly person-shaped bag. Mr. Robinson claimed it was a home invasion gone south, but when officers arrived and searched the garbage disposal out back, Miss Robinson was bloodied up and had bruises everywhere from top to bottom. Macy somehow got her hands on the gory and explicit images that the department investigator took during the time. When I asked her where she got the photos from, all she said was, "I know a guy."
Here's my house. I've told my mom that you were coming, but my dad didn't approve.
I nervously released my hand from hers and took a small step away. I stared at the two bright white pillars that towered over the both of us, and then gazed at the crimson-red bricks that were meticulously placed to keep the frame steady. This place was a blessing, but also a curse. A promising-looking mansion on the outside, and a steady, smooth, cozy home inside. I have a bad feeling about stepping foot in here. Didn't your dad forbid me from ever stepping into your life again? Macy looked at me confusingly and rubbed her hand on her cheek, remembering what happened.
Listen, I'll back you up. I won't allow him to bully you like he did those years ago.
I clenched my fists and took a deep breath. Right. I need to remain calm and not panic. She smiled gleefully at me.
That's the spirit.
As I took a step onto the fancy tiling, I saw the blurry vision of me and her as little kids running around like there was no tomorrow. Macy grabbed my shoulders and pushed me into the kitchen, where her mom was cooking dinner.
Hi, Ma. I'm home, and I brought someone I think you'd like to meet.
Miss Williams turned around, unfocusing her attention on the dish. She placed all her utensils on the tabletop and raced to where I was. Macy, in a panic, rushed over to the stove and continued the duties of finishing the food. Miss Williams smothered me with her caring love exactly like my grandma would, pinching me on the cheek affectionately and squeezing me tight with hugs. I kept seeing Macy staring back at me, but knew that her mom deserved this moment.
Mark, it's so great to see you. The last time I saw you was when you were an itty-bitty baby.
I fidgeted with my fingers for a moment before responding. Yeah, it really has been a hot second. Miss Williams waved her arm to the table, indicating she wanted me to have a seat and have a bite. I pulled a chair out and sat under the bright limelight. Macy swapped out with her mom so she could go back to using the time that I delayed for my sudden appearance.
Sorry about her. She can be a bit of a handful sometimes.
I laughed, embarrassingly. My mom is the exact same when I come home late for a shift, so don't even stress. Miss Williams slid a plate of her fine cuisine and turned the stove off.
I assume you came here because of my world-famous fettuccine Alfredo.
I stared at the plate hungrily, forgetting I hadn't eaten breakfast. Or lunch. You're definitely not wrong, Miss Williams. I've been waiting to chow down on this delicacy that others would call normal. She washed her hands and then wiped her hands with a cloth.
Thank you for the compliment, dear.
As I went to take a bite, a sudden feeling of eeriness blew over me. I tried to ignore it, but it forced itself onto me to a point where I was losing my appetite. Macy looked over to me and asked worryingly about my behavior.
What's wrong, Mark? I thought you enjoyed Mom's cooking.
I felt shivers crawl down my spine. I enjoy your cooking, it's just that I feel like someone or something is watching me. I stared into the deep, dark abyss of the hallway where I thought someone was standing there. She raised an eyebrow, glancing down the corridor.
Mark, there's nothing there.
Macy said, trying to sound calm, but with an edge of annoyance. Taking a few steps forward, she reached out for the light switch, and the hallway lit up in a pale, flickering glow.
See?
Macy replied, turning back to me with a smirk.
You're imagining things. What, did you bump your head or something?
My eyes widened suddenly, and I raised my hand, pointing past her. I froze.
What now?
She muttered, glancing back over. A door at the far end of the corridor swung shut. The faintest echo of its creak hung in the air. My stomach twisted as Macy turned back to me, her expression mirroring my own growing unease. Still think I'm seeing things? I said quietly. She didn't answer. Instead, she swallowed hard and stared at the closed door. I wasn't sure if I wanted to find out what was behind it. I broke the uneasy silence, my voice a little shaky. Macy, can we, I don't know, talk about something else? Anything else? That was creepy. Macy looked at me, her fingers still twitching slightly at her sides, and realized she needed a distraction just as much as I did.
Yeah. Sure.
Macy said, exhaling to release some of the tension coiled in her chest.
Oh, actually, there is something we can talk about. Those new cases I got my hands on earlier.
She grabbed a bag and pulled out a stack of papers, then proceeded to lay down the documents out on the table. The top page bore the word classified, stamped in bold red letters across the header. Below it, the codename Aviator was printed in a clean, sterile typeface. I looked at it in confusion. I leaned in closer. Aviator? Some were technical blueprints for a humanoid drone, its sleek frame outfitted with various weapon attachments. Others were scattered field reports, surveillance photos, and even a cruel map marked with skirmish points.
There's something big going on, Mark. A secret war, or at least the beginnings of one, some kind of rebellion going head-to-head with the Evergreen Foundation.
My face twisted into a grimace as I flipped through the pages, my eyes catching on the detailed schematics. I've seen this thing on the news before. I tapped on the rough image of the Aviator with the shoulder-mounted cannon. This thing was supposed to work with military officers and utility workers. What went wrong?
I'm not sure, but this looks like something meant for warfare.
She said, crossing her arms. I shook my head, clearly disturbed. So what? The Foundation's gone rogue? Macy sighed indefinitely.
Not quite, but I won't doubt the fact there's probably a rogue waddling around.
I viewed one of the major reports. This mentions a missing prototype, an aviator unit that was hijacked during transport. The Evergreen Foundation swore it was a transporting error, but I don't buy it. The timing lines up too perfectly with some of these rebel attacks. I rubbed my temples annoyingly. So we're stuck between a secret rebellion and a foundation with rogue members turning rescue drones into killing machines? The weight of what I'd just said hung heavy between us. I ran a hand through my hair with frustration and disbelief. We've really stepped into something we shouldn't have, haven't we? I sifted through the rest of the papers until I brushed against a page that didn't match the others. The texture was slightly different, thinner, almost like it had been hastily photocopied. I pulled it free and frowned at the handwritten transcript scrawled across its surface. Hey, Macy? I spoke, tilting the page toward her. Look at this. She leaned over my shoulder, squinting at the page. The text was fragmented, as though it had been transcribed mid-conversation. What caught my attention immediately was the list of names scattered throughout. Founder, Operator, Scout, Corpsman, John. These don't sound like real names. Macy sulked. I replied, holding the page closer to my face. At least, I don't think they are. Why would anyone in a task force, or a foundation for that matter, use real names? These have to be code names. I traced a finger under a line of text.
Make it quick. We're not alone out here.
Macy's eyes widened.
This is from the night the prototype went missing, isn't it?
I nodded. It looks like it. The timestamps line up. I read further down. There seemed to be a moment of pause, then a slight voice in the background that the recording couldn't pick up on.
Relax, John. Once we get back to the facility, we'll rewire it like easy.
Wait, if this is connected to the insurgency, that means someone, or maybe multiple people within Evergreen, were involved in stealing the prototype. It wasn't some external glitch or attack.
If this is real, then it's bigger than just a rogue aviator. Someone inside Evergreen is funneling tech into the rebellion, and they're using code names to cover their tracks. But who are they? Founder, operator, scout? These could be anyone. We were standing on the edge of something massive, something far more dangerous than either of us had anticipated. Macy broke the ice by mentioning that she has something I've never seen before. Monsters that go bump in the night while everybody is asleep and not watching. I scoffed, jokingly. You believe that there are such things as monsters? Don't make me laugh, Macy. As if I triggered something in her brain, she stood up angrily and walked over to the filing cabinet, then whipped out another bulky folder hiding God knows what. After waving it around triumphantly, she slammed it onto the kitchen table like she had won a war.
Boom! I'd like to see you prove me wrong once your stupid face takes a look at those pictures.
I looked at her doubtingly and laughed. Right, because you'd want to rub it in my face. Macy shook her head, then revealed the contents of the folder.
I'm not just doing this so I can wipe that smirk off of you, but because I want to prove to you there is more than meets the eye.
I stuck my hand into the massive stack of papers and swished it around before briefly stopping on yet another research report from a Dr. Kolinsky.
Testing session 082-1. This is Dr. Kolinsky, senior researcher overseeing Entity 082, codenamed the Taji. Subject 2405 has been selected for preliminary interaction testing. Subject is now being escorted into the containment cell. Session begins now.
Well, this is a first. Usually you guys throw me at something with teeth and claws. What's this, a meditation session?
Please proceed further into the room, Subject 2405. Describe what you see.
It's a pedestal. Fancy little thing. Looks like it belongs in a museum or something.
Focus on the object on the pedestal, please.
You're kidding, right? It's a ball. A literal ball. Black and white, yin and yang. What is this? Something out of a kid's philosophy book?
That object is Entity 082. You will refer to it as the Taji. Please refrain from unnecessary commentary.
Right. The Taji. Sounds fancy. So what? I'm here to play with a kid's toy? I thought you eggheads were supposed to keep me busy with actual anomalies, not whatever this is.
I assure you, 2405, the Taji is far from child's play. This entity has been freshly contained, and as per protocol, its classification defaults to safe until further testing proves otherwise.
Safe, huh? You know, the last safe thing I touched nearly tore my arm off. You guys really need to work on your definitions.
Approach the pedestal, 2405. I want you to observe it closely and describe any sensations or changes you notice.
All right, I'm here, standing right in front of it.
Describe what you see and feel.
It's still a ball. Looks smooth, like polished marble. It's not glowing or floating or anything weird. Just sitting there. Kinda boring, if I'm honest.
Touch it.
You're serious?
Touch the entity, 2405. That's an order.
Okay, I'm touching it. Still feels like marble. Cold, smooth. What the hell? It moved! It pulsed or something!
Stay calm, 2405. What do you mean by pulsed?
I don't know. It felt like it was alive for a second. Like it was breathing. It sent this weird pulse through my hand, like a heartbeat.
Describe the pulse. Was it painful?
No, not painful, just weird. It wasn't natural, I'll tell you that. Like it was looking at me, through my skin.
Interesting. Did you feel anything else? Any emotions or thoughts that weren't your own?
Now that you mention it, yeah. For a second I felt peaceful. I don't know how to describe it. Like everything was still, silent. But then it turned creepy, like it was trying to crawl into my head.
Noted. Step away from the pedestal, 2405.
You know what? Screw this. I don't like it. Whatever this thing, it's not safe. You hear me? It's not safe.
Understood. Session terminated. Containment protocols will be updated accordingly. End log. Following this session, Entity 082's classification has been updated to Euclid. Further testing is required to determine the full nature of its anomalous properties. Subject 2405 has been temporarily removed from testing assignments due to psychological distress. Additional comment. Entity 082 may appear benign, but its influence appears to be far-reaching. I recommend we proceed with extreme caution moving forward. The Taji may represent more than just balance. It may be a conduit for something far more dangerous. Dr. Kalinsky. Project Battlefield is a fiction podcast produced by Deviant Studios, created by Dominic Villegas and edited by Jacoby Kendrick. Today's cast is Mark Edwards, played by Sue, Macy Williams by Alice, Mary Williams by Rain Reeves, The Founder by Brainworms.com, Operator by C204. Finally, Mark's dad, Subject 2405, Dr. Kalinsky, and the intro and outro narrations are voiced by Psyker7. If you wish to support the show, then join our Discord for all future updates via the link in the description. Thank you for listening.